Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm just relaxing at home. My wife and I are trying to decompress a little bit from our recent trip to Oklahoma for the Bassmaster Open on Lake Eufaula. And then we've got, in about a week and a half, we got to leave up for the Northeast. We've got a place up in Connecticut we're going to hang out at, and then I got to fly back for ICAST down to Orlando, and then I got to fly immediately back and go to the St. Lawrence River for the next Bassmaster Open. So really looking forward to the northern swing, going and catching some smallmouth and some really aggressive largemouth that haven't been eating for half a year. And so looking forward to that. But as of right now, we are pretty much out of the Elite Series running. We ended up having 2 bombs this year so far. We've had 5 events, 3 decent events, and 2 really, really deep triple-digit finishes, which really took me by surprise this year. Last year was one of the most difficult years I've had on the pro circuit. And thought that I had learned, my lessons from that. And then we moved over to the Opens this year. And I feel like the lessons that I learned on the pro circuit, if I had continued fishing the invitationals, with the smaller field size, the limited practice, I feel like the lessons I learned, I would have a pretty good year fishing that series. But we switched to the Opens. I'm 100% in on the Opens, 100% dedicated to making the Elite Series and making the Classic, and I'm still very happy with that decision. However, I'm realizing after 5 events and having 2 really, really big bombs that I'm starting to remember what the Opens are all about, and that they are very, very different than some of the other tournament trails that I've fished in the past. And so just wanted to kind of share some of my thoughts with you about how I feel about fishing the Opens and how I'm going to change my approach moving forward. That's what it's all about. You can't gripe about where you're fishing and the competition that you're competing against. You have to figure out why you might not be competing to your expectations and to where you need to be, and figure out how to do that, where you need to brush up on. And sometimes when you fish a league or fish a certain type of tournament, and against a certain field, you have to adjust things a little bit. And what I've realized fishing the Opens this year is that, number one, the field size is a big factor for a lot of these tournaments. There's some tournaments it doesn't feel as big of a factor. Like Toledo Bend was massive. It fished big. You could fish on a lot of parts of that lake and do really well. And then you also had Lake Eufaula, Alabama. That was a little bit more, it felt a little bit smaller, but people still spread out all the way from the river all the way down to the dam. So those tournaments didn't feel all that bad. But there's been a couple events, a few events actually this year. I felt like Wheeler, everybody was on top of each other. I felt like Bugs Island was pretty tightly knit as far as the where most of the anglers were. But really, Bugs Island, the reason I did poorly there was because I just didn't realize that there was one part of the lake where it was all going down. So missed the boat on that one. But Wheeler and Lake Eufaula, the amount of fishing pressure was a huge factor in both of those events. Okay, even though I had a decent event at Lake Eufaula or at Wheeler Lake, it was there was still so much pressure, and I didn't adjust very well to that. So the difference between like fishing the pro circuit and fishing the Opens is, number one, on the pro circuit, let's do a side-by-side comparison. pro circuit, the last couple of years, we had 2 days of practice, okay? 2 days of practice, then an off day. So the fish got a break, you know, after just 2 days of practice, and you also only have 150 anglers, give or take. So 150 anglers only beating up on fish for 2 days, and then the fish get an off day, so they get to relax for a day. And then in the opens, you've got 5 days of practice, really 4.5 days of practice, no off day, and you've got 225 anglers plus co-anglers beating up on these fish for that extended practice time. So once I sat down and really thought about it after this you know, like you follow event, it really surprised me that I didn't understand the dynamic of these tournaments a little bit better. And really what it comes down to is that in the opens, with the fishing pressure, you really have to adjust in ways that make you target fish that aren't being as pressured, or fish tactics that are a little bit more finesse. So I really do think that like spinning rods, finesse tactics, and also utilizing live scope in targeting fish that are in areas that aren't traditionally, you know, attractive to anglers is kind of you know, kind of the deciding factor for a lot of these events. Yeah, there's still going to be tournaments where I can apply my shallow water power fishing tactics, but what I've found this year is that those shallow water power fishing tactics in some of these events are a very, very tough sell, because these fish have been pounded so hard for a week straight before we even, you know, compete and get to weigh fish in, that you know, those tactics get progressively harder and harder to catch fish on, and by the time the tournament starts, man, it's really difficult to get that going. I'm not saying that happens in every event, because that's what I've done in every single event, is fish shallow power fishing tactics like chatterbaits, square bills, spinner baits, flipping and pitching, those sort of things, frogs, toads. You know, those type of baits, I've really, really pushed hard. And there's been some tournaments that kind of aligned with that strategy, but there's also been a couple tournaments that were very, very tough to get that going. And you experienced, or I experienced, 2 really, really deep triple-digit finishes because of that. And so I'm not, you know, and I mentioned the live scope thing, not in a negative way. I'm a firm believer, like that I don't gripe about forward-facing sonar and how it's changed the game. It's 100% changing the game. But as a competitor, you know, if you really want to compete at the top levels, you have to hold yourself accountable for adjusting to the times. And I just have not done that very well in the last couple of years. I should be learning how to utilize that technology more effectively, and I just haven't done that. What I've done in recent years that is kind of like masked my weakness with the technology is that I've used forward-facing sonar to enhance what I already do, to enhance the type of patterns that I already like to you know, go after in tournaments. So like, for instance, you know, I might go fish shallow, you know, on a grass flat or something like that, and use the forward-facing sonar to line up a cast, or to find you know, a good part of the grass line, or find a brush pile or something, whatever it may be. I'm using it to enhance you know, something I would have already done prior to the technology. But now it seems like you have to actually utilize this technology as a primary pattern and target individual fish. It's not just, if you're going to do it to the perfection that these guys are doing it, including my buddy Joey Nania, who just won the Bassmaster Open, and that's a lot of what he does. Like, the majority of what he does is look at him and picks him off with that Ned Mickey. He's a wizard at it. And if you're looking to get better at this technology, it has to be doing things that you're essentially just using the technology as the primary pattern, not to enhance another pattern. Is, you know, there's no better way to say it. But so in the opens, I've really, learned that finesse tactics and using live scope as its own pattern are two things that I need to get better at. And let me tell you, man, there's no better kick in the pants that will make you realize that you need to start learning some new things than to have two really big bombs fishing the opens. And so from here on out, man, I know exactly what I need to do and how I'm going to do it to get better at those things. I need to learn how to live scope like the best of them, and I need to learn how to add more finesse tactics to my arsenal, because the fishing pressure at the opens level, it has got to be the strongest fishing pressure out there. Even with it being a somewhat limited practice, only 5 days versus unlimited practice per event. So I've learned a lot in the last few events. I definitely have been humbled in a couple of these events this year. But, I always say it, man, in order to learn and to grow as an angler, you have to embrace the suck. And what that means is you don't have to like sucking in tournaments. I hate it. I really do. It pisses me off when I have a bad tournament. But I appreciate these bad tournaments because they are the ones that really show me where I'm lacking and where I need to work on things. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We learned some very valuable lessons in a couple of tournaments this year, and we're going to carry those lessons that we've learned on to the rest of the tournaments this year, and especially the Opens EQ in 2024, because since we're out of the running for the Elite Series this year, that is where my energy is focusing on polishing up those area of my game that I'm lacking in, and really be ready for next year's competition. But anyways, guys, those are just some thoughts. It may sound like I'm being hard on myself, but I always have kept myself motivated by making sure that I hold myself accountable for good and bad tournaments, and so I've got a really, really good outlook moving forward. I'm really excited, and honestly, I'm more excited than I've been in a while, because I've felt for a while that something's been missing in my tournament fishing over the last few years. And really what it is that I've stopped learning. I've stopped really learning new things, and I've really relied on the things that I've always been doing for most of my tournaments. And that's okay. Like, you can have your strengths, the things that you're really, really good at. But if you stop learning, the fish are constantly adapting. The game is going to constantly change with new technology added, with more pressure on the water. And that's exactly what we're experiencing right now, is that a lot of shallow water power fishing tactics that I traditionally love to implement are getting harder and harder to use, because the technology is getting so much better at making anglers more efficient and targeting those fish that are a little bit more obvious, in that shallow water region. So anyways, that I've started to realize what I need to work on, and so we're going to do it. That is my pledge to you guys. We're going to figure it out. We're going to dial it in, and the future is bright. I'm really excited. So thank you guys for listening. Let me know what your thoughts are on the things that I'm saying here. I know I'm kind of just rambling on about some of my thoughts, but if you have any questions or any comments, obviously drop a comment below. And just overall, you guys, I say it every single video, but make sure you trust the process. That's how we succeed. So I'm going to see you out on the water. Take care.